And so you are now, I know maybe it's not as exciting for you as it is for me having shared this, but here are the hot off the press are the overall outcomes that we decided on in October. And like I say, the report should be going up in the next week or so. So what, and you know, it's funny when you're trying to craft these, you know, statements, outcomes. Again, the committee was like negotiating these among ourselves. So we had to come to consensus on these. And, you know, so we agreed, like the first thing we wanted to say was, yes, the bones of this treaty are good. They're fine. Everything is there that we need to deal with this problem of POPs. So that was the first thing. We have all the tools. So we wanted to make that, and the dynamic relates to the POP rock and the fact that we add chemicals, which is challenging for some countries, because if at every COP you have new chemicals to regulate, that's challenging for many governments to keep up with. So that was one of the things we wanted to say. Then we wanted to, and it's a good framework for all of these things that the treaty regulates. The thing is, we said inadequate implementation is the key issue identified in the evaluation. You know, for somebody who's been involved in compliance negotiations for many years, that's not a surprise to me, but we wanted to make the point that this is a problem. This is affecting the success of this treaty, and it needs to be said pretty boldly that this is a problem. So we pointed that out. And we also, as I said earlier, we were able to say everything required in this treaty to be done, you know, reporting formats, every last thing has been done by the Conference of the Parties, but the compliance procedures. And those in the treaty, it says the Conference of the Parties shall adopt as soon as practicable. The treaty's been in force for 12 years now, so, and as far back as COP3, we almost had consensus on compliance procedures. So it has been possible, but it hasn't happened. And part of the challenge there has been we have consensus decision-making, so one party can block. And that's one of the challenges we've had. But so we were able to point that out. Again, we also pointed out that there was limited data from national reports. And so we pointed this out just as a highlight, but obviously a lot of recommendations were focused on what to do about that. This was challenging. Now, the global monitoring program has been a very big success. It's one of the biggest successes of the treaty. And so they have succeeded in developing monitoring capacity around the world, not just in certain regions of the world. And they've also, these regulations, you know, it was tricky for us to try to draw conclusions because, first of all, for the legacy chemicals, the first 12, we know that there was a regional treaty in the UN Economic Commission for Europe. So that predated Stockholm. And as a result of that treaty, or even before that treaty, Canada and the US are also part of this LRTAP region. So we know that governments were already regulating certain governments that had big industry and therefore were contributing to these issues. You know, we're taking action even before the Stockholm Convention. So it was challenging to try to express that because we knew that all the improvements under Stockholm were not just because of Stockholm. Some of it predated because of the LRTAP, some of them because governments even took action before there was a treaty. So what we decided to say was that the results indicate that regulations, we meant national regulations, targeting POPs are succeeding. That was true. We knew that. We couldn't attribute all of it to the Stockholm Convention, but some of it we could. So we said for legacy POPs, concentrations have declined and continue to decline or remain at low levels. And then we acknowledged this is due to restrictions that predated the Stockholm Convention, but then we said, and are now incorporated in it. So future reductions, we presume, will be related to the fact that they're in the Stockholm Convention. Now, for the newly listed POPs, these are the ones that are still active in commerce. Some of them are haven't been replaced, and so there are exemptions. So we're saying concentrations are beginning to show decreases, although in a few instances, this is a little bit disturbing, increasing in some instances, or stable levels. So these are very nuanced findings, but this global monitoring program has been working since, I guess they did their first report at COP4. So they've been working for a while, and so they've become quite sophisticated at pulling out their conclusions. And so they basically took all of their work and their second report. We had several of our committee members were from that committee, even though officially there was only one member of that group on our committee. There were several, and they were quite helpful in helping us. I mean, we weren't trying to revisit. We're not a monitoring group, so we weren't trying to redo what they already did. But we knew that with these people in the committee, if we had to tweak it to fit it into the kind of conclusions we were reaching, they would help us do it. So that was very useful to have those people in the committee, and that's kind of where we came out on those.